The room was full of noise before the silence came. It was the kind of noise only high-ranking military gatherings produced. Measured laughter, controlled voices, boots shifting on polished floors, metals clinking softly against starched uniforms. The walls of the Marine Corps War College briefing hall were lined with portraits of legends. Generals who had written doctrine with blood, strategy carved from sacrifice. At the front of the room stood General Robert H. Mallory, a man whose reputation preceded him like thunder. 3 decades in uniform. Campaign ribbons stacked so high they seemed to pull his chest forward. A man known for sharp wit, sharper judgment, and absolutely zero tolerance for nonsense. That he was also known for something else. He enjoyed testing people, especially newcomers, especially women. The attendees that afternoon represented the best of the best: commanders, colonels, special operations advisors, and decorated combat veterans. And sitting quietly in the third row, hands folded loosely in her lap, was Major Evelyn Carter. She did not look like what most expected, and dramatic scars on her face. No squagger, no laudlaf, no need to be seen. Her uniform was immaculate, worn with the ease of someone who didn't need to prove she belonged in it. Her posture was relaxed but alert, like a coiled wire resting between moments of tension. If you didn't know better, you'd think she was just another staff officer. That you'd be wrong. General Mallory had been reviewing recent joint operations in contested regions, dry numbers, casualty ratios, engagement outcomes. The kind of presentation that bored most people and put others to sleep. Then he paused. He adjusted his glasses and glanced down at his tablet. "And we have a new addition to the advisory council today," he said, his voice casual but carrying easily across the hall. "Major Evelyn Carter." A few heads turned. A few nods followed. Mallory smiled faintly. Sniper qualified. Force recon attached. Multiple overseas deployments. He looked up now, scanning the room, then settling his eyes on her. "And according to this," he continued, tapping the screen, "one hell of a kill count." The room reacted instantly to a ripple of sound. Soft chuckles, raised eyebrows, exchanged looks. It wasn't openly disrespectful, but it wasn't respectful either. Mallory leaned back slightly, folding his arms. "So tell me, Major," he said, his tone light, almost playful. "How many is it now? Lost count yet?" The silence fell hard. Every eye in the room turned to her. This was the moment. Some expected anger. Some expected embarrassment. Some expected a defensive explanation wrapped in professionalism. Evelyn Carter did none of those things. She didn't shift in her seat, didn't clear her throat, didn't even blink. She simply raised her head and met the general's gaze. "Permission to answer honestly, sir?" Mallory smiled wider. "By all means." She nodded once. "I don't keep count," she said calmly. The chuckles returned, lighter this time, tinged with disbelief. Mallory lifted a brow. "That's so." "Yes, sir." "And why is that?" he pressed. "Seems like a detail someone in your line of work would remember." Evelyn paused for half a second. Not to think, but to choose precision. "Because, sir," she said evenly, "the moment you start counting, you stop seeing targets as threats and start seeing them as numbers. That's when mistakes happen." The room went quiet again, but this silence was different. Heavier. Mallory's smile faded. Not completely, but enough. Still, he wasn't finished. "Fair answer," he said. "But humor me. Rough estimate." Some officers shifted uncomfortably now. This was no longer light banter. This was a test. Evelyn took a slow breath. "Sir," she said, her voice steady, "every round I fired was authorized, confirmed, and necessary to protect Marines who couldn't protect themselves in that moment." She paused. "If any of them were still alive today because of that," she added, "then the number that matters isn't how many I killed, it's how many I brought home." You could hear someone swallow. Mallory stared at her. Not with amusement, with calculation. "Where did you serve, Major?" he asked. "Helmand Province." "Kinner." "Northern Iraq." "Eastern Syria." The list landed like weight. "And before that?" She hesitated. "Sir, with respect, some of those records are classified." A murmur swept through the room. "Classified?" Mallory straightened. "Classified at your level?" he asked sharply. "Yes, sir." He studied her now the way a predator studies terrain. "Who were you attached to?" Joint task groups, she replied. Rotational. And before the Marines? Evelyn didn't answer immediately. When she did, her voice was quieter. I wasn't a Marine then. The room leaned and Mallory's eyes narrowed. Explain. I was Army, she said. Seconded. To who? She met his gaze again. People who don't attend conferences. That did it. The laughter was gone. Completely. Mallory took a slow step forward. You're saying your highest confirmed engagements weren't even under Marine command? Yes, sir. A colonel near the front shifted in his seat. That would explain the discrepancies, someone muttered. Mallory folded his hands behind his back. You don't talk like a sniper, he said. Most of them either brag or break. I wasn't trained to talk, Evelyn replied. I was trained to wait. That sentence hit like a dropped rifle. Mallory stopped pacing. Wait for what? For permission, she said. For confirmation. For the right moment. And if it never came, then someone else handled it, she said. Or we withdrew. Mallory stared at her for a long moment. Then he asked quietly, how many missions went wrong? Evelyn didn't dodge this one. Enough to respect silence, she said. And one breathed. Mallory exhaled slowly. You're aware, he said, that some people here think you were promoted too fast. I'm aware, she replied. And that some think you're here as a symbol. She nodded. Yes, sir. And what do you think? Evelyn paused longer this time. Then she stood. Not sharply. Not dramatically. She simply stood, hands at her sides, shoulders squared. I think, she said, symbols don't bleed. That was it. The room froze. Mallory looked at her. Not as a general now, but as a soldier recognizing another. He didn't respond immediately. Instead, he turned to the room. Take 10, he said quietly. Chairs scraped. Voices stayed hushed as people filed out. Glances followed her. No longer curious, but cautious. Mallory waited until the room was nearly empty. Then he looked back at Evelyn Carter. Sit, he said. She did. You know, he said slowly. I was joking. Yes, sir. You didn't laugh. No, sir. Why? She considered him. Because Marines die when leaders forget the weight of words, she said. Especially about killing. Mallory nodded once. Where did you learn that? Evelyn's eyes drifted, not away, but inward. From the first man I ever watched die, because I hesitated. Mallory didn't ask more. He already knew the answer would be heavy. Outside, the hallway buzzed with speculation. Inside, two warriors sat in silence. One with stars on his shoulders, the other with shadows behind her eyes, and the general, for the first time that day, wasn't joking anymore. The silence between General Mallory and Major Evelyn Carter stretched longer than any firefight she had ever survived. Mallory finally broke it. You don't hesitate like someone who fears judgment, he said. You hesitate like someone who's buried people. Evelyn didn't deny it. Yes, sir. He leaned back in his chair. You said your earlier records were classified. I don't usually pry where I don't have clearance. Understood, sir. But today, he continued, you didn't flinch when I joked about killing. That tells me two things. Either you've lost something, or you've seen something most of us haven't. Evelyn's jaw tightened just slightly. I've seen what happens, she said, when leadership turns war into entertainment. Mallory closed his eyes briefly. Tell me about the first man you lost, he said quietly. Evelyn's fingers curled once, then relaxed. It was Afghanistan, she began. Mountain Overwatch. We had ISR confirmation, but delayed authorization. The target kept moving. She paused. My spotter saw the ambush forming. I saw it too. We requested permission. And Mallory asked. It didn't come in time. Her voice never cracked, but something else did. The air. They hit the convoy. I watched through my scope as the vehicle burned. I knew the faces inside. I knew their call signs. I knew exactly where to put the round. She swallowed. But protocol mattered more than instinct that day. Mallory didn't interrupt. Afterward, she continued, they asked why I didn't take the shot. I told them the truth. They said I did the right thing. Her eyes lifted to his. They were wrong. Mallory nodded slowly. That was when you were Army? Yes, sir. And after that, they reassigned me, she said. Different unit. Different patch. Same silence. He studied her. You're not telling me everything. No, sir. But enough, he said. There was a knock at the door. A lieutenant stepped in hesitantly. Sir, the council reconvened early. They're waiting. Mallory stood. So are we, he said as they walked back into the hall together. Conversations died mid-sentence. Heads turned. Something had changed. Mallory took the podium again. Before we continue, he said, I'd like Major Carter to remain standing. Evelyn stood. You heard me joke earlier, he continued, looking around the room. Some of you laughed. Some of you were uncomfortable. A few of you enjoyed it. No one spoke. I want to be clear, he said. Combat isn't a scoreboard, and anyone who thinks it is has no business leading Marines. The room was utterly still. Major Carter, he said, turning to her, how many Marines were under your overwatch across your deployments? She answered immediately. Directly? 43. Indirectly more. And how many came home? All but 2. A breath went through the room. Mallory nodded. Those 2, he asked. Were they because you missed? No, sir, she said. They were because war doesn't care how good you are. Mallory faced the room again. Major Carter's record was flagged, not because of excess, he said, but because her engagements prevented escalation. Less firefights, less casualties. He paused. She was never loud enough for headlines. Evelyn stood motionless. She was never reckless enough to be famous. Mallory turned back to her. You once answered a kill count question by saying the number that matters is how many you bring home. Yes, sir. I checked, he said. Your teams request you by name. A ripple of surprise passed through the room. Not because you're aggressive, he continued, but because when you're watching, they sleep. The general straightened. Major Evelyn Carter, he said, voice firm. On behalf of the Marine Corps, I apologize for making light of your service. The words hit like thunder. Then something even rarer happened. General Robert H. Mallory came to attention. Every officer in the room followed instinctively. The silence was absolute. Evelyn's eyes widened. Not in pride, but in something closer to pain. Sir, she said quietly, you don't owe me that. Mallory met her gaze. I owe the dead respect, he replied. After the session ended, Marines approached her one by one, not with questions, not with jokes, but with nods. Quiet acknowledgments. Warrior to warrior, as Evelyn walked out of the building into the fading light. She paused. For the first time that day, she allowed herself to breathe. She didn't count kills, she counted lives. And somewhere far from briefing rooms and polished floors, Marines she would never meet were alive because she had waited and because she had acted when it mattered.